So let's try to recap yesterday.
Right.
So to recap yesterday, I want to add a little bit more. That the question now became, since, we'll say it like this, in the Rambam's time, how was the mitzvah of Talmud Torah understood? The learning Torah was understood as an expression of, or connecting to Hashem's thought, but connecting to it, meaning Hashem is always thinking the Torah, because Torah is the ultimate good. That's what it says, lekach tov natati lachem. I've given you a good inheritance, or lekach, I guess. It's not inheritance. I've given you something good. And when you learn Torah, you're showing, or you're making yourself into an instance of Hashem's mind.
So you're uniting with Hashem.
Okay, you and Hashem are one. But now came Kabbalah, and it pushed Hashem away. It made him more distant. In the middle, we now have this world of emanation. And in the world of emanation, as he explained, Hashem's essence is only enclosed in garbs in wisdom. Okay. So it's not that Hashem himself is the thinker. The thinking is a garb. It's a vestment that he wears. It's not he himself. So in that sense, I would think now that if I'm learning Torah, so I'm not as connected to Hashem as I was before. Again, by the Rambam, the moment that I learn Torah, I and Hashem are like one thing.
If you shake hands with the king,
Okay. Oh.
he's wearing gloves and not wearing gloves, it's the same king.
So now you have to come and say that when I shake hands with you, like you just said, the gloves, or the, better yet, the mashal that's usually given in Chassidus is when I hug you. Mm-hmm. So even though I'm only hugging, as it were, the clothing, you're inside. So that's what he explained to us yesterday. And he explained a few different stages of the enclosement that occurs in learning Torah. But apparently there's no difference. What does it matter to you if it's the same exactly, or it's enclosed within something? But that's the whole thing that Kabbalah came to answer. It came to say, why did we push Hashem away and force this thing of enclosement? What did we do that for? Why did Kabbalah introduce the world of emanation, the world of enclosement, we can call it? Because we had all kinds of problems saying that Hashem changes and this and that. But then this caused us to also gain and benefit, or rather, it's not gain or benefit, but a side product of adding enclosement into our understanding is that there are places that Hashem is more revealed and places that he's less revealed. Enclosement solves for you the problem of why is it that even though Hashem is everywhere, he appears differently in different things. Okay? The way that he engarbs himself within the soul is one thing. The way he engarbs himself within a tree is something entirely different. And you can't say that they're the same. You can't say that they have the same level of revelation.
The tree is not thinking about Torah,
right?
So therefore,
but not only that.
Connect to Hashem.
But not only because it's not thinking, because it's not moving, and because it's not. It can't do any mitzvahs. Put it that way. It has no free will of its own to do a mitzvah. So the level of enclosement is very low. Yeah. If there's a person who's very holy, and right now he's only, tapping his fingers. So tapping his fingers like this, there's not a lot of enclosement going on. But if he's putting tefillin on, there's a lot of enclosement going on. Yeah? Because a lot is being expressed with the tefillin. So we have these different levels. So now, once we have different levels, it actually fits better, as we'll see. It actually fits better because we have different subjects in Torah are a different level of enclosement.
The actual Hashem hasn't changed any more than the sun changes when the clouds cover the sky.
Right, and as we said,
It's
by the
still
Rambam,
same thing.
and by the Rambam, you're immediately touching the substance of Hashem. And I think that the word that I'm having a difficult time translating, etzim. I always said that there's a word in Greek, but there's no word in English.
Same as essence.
No, essence is mahut. It's different, entirely different. But I think that what they want is the right word is substance. I'm beginning to think that that's the right word. So I'll use substance for a while. Let's see if it works. Okay, so okay. So what else did we see yesterday? We were on page 19, and we saw that this is the reason why so now since it's enclosement, we have a new reason for why the sages of the Mishnah and the Talmud were so engaged all day long. That was their work in learning Torah, because they wanted all day long their soul to be connected to the infinite.
They could have done it with other ways.
What's another way?
They could have been busy doing mitzvahs, they could have been busy giving tzedakah all day long.
But it's much less. We agree that it's much less of an enclosement. There's enclosement there. It's not that there's not at all, but mitzvahs are mostly soviv, something else. If you want to get to enclosement, really the only way is through Torah. If you want to get to pure enclosement, meaning Hashem is enclosing himself within your neshama, within the mind, and the neshama is enclosing itself within your mind, and so on. So all that cascade of enclosement only occurs when you learn Torah.
Taif. So where are you starting from?
So now, if you say that it's all enclosement, so it depends on how much you understand. Okay? The more you understand, the more enclosement there is. Doesn't matter. It's more than what you understood yesterday. The more you understand, the more enclosement, because we know that's how enclosement works, right? The more something is ready to receive the light, the more it receives it. So if my mind is now sharper today, and I learn, so Hashem is more enclosed in my mind. Again, assuming this is a big assumption, but doesn't seem that the Alter Rebbe goes against it in any way. That Torah is the way to create enclosement of God's substance into reality. But he says, what he added yesterday, I didn't stress this enough, that in order for them to be able to bring the soviv, not just the mamale, there have to be mitzvos. We said that the mitzvos are a gilui, they're a revelation of the soviv, of the light that surrounds everything, meaning the infinite light that's equal by everything. There's no difference whether you like this or like that, you receive it equally. And they also did it while learning. How do you do it while learning? So that was the last paragraph that we read yesterday. So that we're the Gimel, we're at the beginning of Gimel. Apart from the mitzvos, the other way is by the nefesh, by the psyche nullifying itself and including itself in the infinite light. Okay. Al yedei esek haTorah, by learning Torah. How do you do that? שלא להיות בבחינת יש בפני עצמו, אלא להיות בטל לאור אינסוף ורצונו וחוכמתו, שזהו עסק התורה. So what are you doing? You're not just trying to understand, but you're trying to also nullify yourself. And admittedly, these are two opposite movements in the psyche, because the one requires you to understand and comprehend as much as you can. The other is, it doesn't matter how much I comprehend and how much I understand. Okay? So that's what he explains in the Tanya in chapter 5, that the Torah is both things. The Torah is both Ora Memale, it's enclothement because it depends on how much you understand, but it's also a mitzvah. Like all the other mitzvahs, it has an aspect of bittul to it. It has an aspect of jumping over the whole question of enclothement, right? Because the mitzvahs are like bringing Hashem's substance, infinite substance, down into reality. The etzem into reality. That's what the mitzvahs can do. That's what the commandments can do that enclothement can't do. Because in enclothement, it's only lefi erech. It's only as much as you understand. So therefore, there has to be, in learning Torah, there has to be also an element of performing a mitzvah. You following?
What mitzvah? The mitzvah of learning Torah.
Okay. It's a mitzvah also.
But that's automatic, no?
Why is that automatic?
Since you start to learn Torah, you're doing the mitzvah.
Can, but you might not be doing it because of that. That's what he says. You have to have this in mind.
Okay. So in other words, you can't do it as an academic exercise.
Exactly. Torah has a tendency to fall into catering to your intellectual curiosity. Okay? It has a strong tendency not to be treated as a mitzvah. People enjoy it very much because it's very enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great...
Bistama, it doesn't matter how much you understand because...
What?
Bistama, it doesn't really matter.
Of course it does.
No, because one person can understand it this way, one person can understand it another way.
But you still have to understand
then you say to me, so nobody understands everything that Hashem says. He only understands one portion of it.
But what you understand, you need to understand. If you don't understand, there's no memale coming in. And there is a mitzvah to understand. It's not just... You have to have what we call... Veshinantam is to know. V'dibarta is to talk. But there's also an element of V'ayu advarim ha'ele al levavcha. Al levavcha means that there's understanding. There's an element of the more you understand, the more you're bringing Hashem into the world. But again, not the substance, but rather what we call the he'ara, the revelation of Hashem. In any case, כמו שכתוב ולא תחללו, שלא לעשות בחינת חלל ואלם אור אינסוף ברוך הוא. שהוא יתברך אינו שורה במישהו יש ודבר, שאין אני והוא יכולים לדור בעולם, אם כן גורם בחינת חלל, שנמסתלק אור אינסוף ברוך הוא ממנו. If a person is not performing the mitzvah of learning Torah, he's only learning Torah for the intellectual side of it, then he's making a halal, he's making a void. Because even though the revelation of Hashem is here, because he's learning it, the substance of Hashem is not here. God's substance is not here.
Yeah, we can learn Lo Lishma in order for it to become Lishma.
It will turn into Lishma. But right now it's a halal. And again, Lo Lishma is not exactly the same thing as learning it for my intellectual gratification. Not exactly the same thing. Lo Lishma means it's not for the sake of the mitzvah. But it could be that I'm not learning it because I want my intellectual gratification. Maybe other reasons. Because I really believe that it's important for there to be exemplars of Hashem's light coming into the world, and I'm one of them.
That's the Shem mitzvah.
It's not a mitzvah. That's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is בביטול גמור. והנה ידוע שלהיות התהוות העולמות נעשה חלל ומקום פנוי, ואחר כך נמשך קו לתוך מקום החלל. We know, what's this thing with a void, creating a void? We know that in order to create the world, Hashem had to create some kind of void. ועניין החלל הוא אעלם האור, והקו הוא בחינת הגילוי. And what do you want? After Hashem created the void, there was the revelation of the ray of light. So here you go. You see, it's okay to make a void.
It's not a literal void.
It doesn't matter when you say Lo techalelu et Shem kodeshi, when you say don't make a void of my name, okay, which really means don't desecrate my name. But it's called making a void. You also understand that you're not making a literal void. It's a figurative void. But so what's so terrible about making a void? אך כיוון שהגילוי מעט רק על דרך משל בבחינת קו וחוט לבד, על כן בריבוי השתלשלות העולמות נעשה למטה בבחינת הלם והסתר, וגם כי הערת הקו מסתיים במלכות דאצילות, אלא שאחר כך נמשך בוקע דרך הפרסה. So he says there's two reasons why making a void is not a good idea. You're not going to create a new world. Rather, what you're going to create is a new state of Hashem being hidden from the world. Because even the ray of light, the ray of infinite light that came down after God created the tzimtzum, the void, was only a diminished revelation of his infinite nature. And because it was diminished, it's called a line or a thread. But like a line or a thread, imagine now that I tell you that it's like a mitzvah dance. Not only are you not going to hug the king himself, not only is he going to have clothing on him, but you're going to have to tie a long gartel, and that's all how you'll touch him. That's all you're allowed. So that obviously is much, much less. So he says it's not. So when you have yeshut, when you are learning because of the intellectual gratification, because of whatever kind of satisfaction you get from it, and you're not learning because it's a mitzvah, then it's like you're only tied by a gartel. That's not sufficient for anybody. And secondly, there's also not just does it become less like touching him through a gartel, it becomes that you add a screen on the way. You add a masach. The masach that you have is the parsa, the screen, the separation between the world of Atzilus and the world of Bria. So there's also separation. It's not just touching him through a gartel. It's also having a plastic protecting you from corona or something, okay, on the way. That's not very much of a connection. אמנם לעתיד לבוא יגילו יור אינסוף שלמעלה מהצמצום וחלל, ולא יהיה עוד הגילוי בבחינת קו, אלא עצמות אור אינסוף יתגלה, ולא יהיה עוד חלל והפסק כלל, והגילוי יהיה למטה דווקא, מה שאין כאן עכשיו, שהקו מסתיים באצילות. Indeed, in the future, he says, this parsa will be gone, and the kav won't be a kav anymore. But that's in the future. But for right now, this is how things are. והבא עתליה, שכשהגילוי רק בבחינת קו, על כן הולך ומתמעט, וכמשל החבל שבראשו אב הולך ומתקצר עד שמסתיים באצילות. מה שאין כן, כשהגילוי הוא עצמיות האור שלא בבחינת קו, הנה מעלה ומטה שווים. He says that in the future, you're right, Hashem will be revealed in his substance. But given that we are where we are, so the fact that you have all you have is a gartel, all you have is a thread connecting you to Hashem, so that is kalush. It's very slight.
Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, nobody can see my face and die. So how can you expect to get so close to Hashem? There has to be a partition.
Who said that you have to see his face?
If you want to get close to him, that's seeing his face.
No. What?
Can't get further away than seeing somebody's back.
But again, the whole idea is that you want to have a connection. You don't have to see the face to have a connection. Why do you have to see the face?
You're going to learn in here and I'm going to learn out there.
Maybe.
Only works with Zoom.
That's also the question, whether looking at somebody through Zoom constitutes seeing their face. Apparently not. In any case, וגילוי זה לעתיד לבוא על ידי עסק התורה עכשיו בבחינת ביטול. So why will Hashem suddenly appear this way? The Soviv, what he's talking about is the Soviv. Why will Hashem's infinite nature suddenly, his infinite substance suddenly reveal itself? It's all a result of learning Torah now b'bchinat bittul, with bittul, complete bittul, that it's just a mitzvah. Shebechumat Torah shoreh umelubash or ensof. And then that causes even the wisdom of the Torah. It's not that you should not understand. Whatever you understand now, contains Hashem's substance, and not just a revelation. The substance of the infinite. Ela shu b'chinat kav. But it's less right now, because again, we're in the state where everything is coming through the kav.